Hello, brothers. Again,
Hey, bro.
Hey.
here we are.
Long time no see, guys.
It is a long time no see.
It
It's
feels like
been-
10 minutes.
It probably has been 15.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bring the topic to you today, and it's going to be controversial. I'm just telling you, and I know you guys fight me. You fight me on this
Chad's
stuff that's
old
controversial.
typical, no offense, but I'm going to offend you.
No, it's not about wanting to offend anybody. I'm personally at a spot in my life where I'm just frustrated by what's going on. There seems to be a lack of accountability. People just do whatever they want. I'm going to probably call out some groups, but it's not because I'm trying to focus on those groups. It's just that those are the situations I'm facing.
Those are the ones that come to mind, or they're forefront because of media.
Correct. It's not
else.
about making fun or trying to specifically, be on one particular person. It's just things that have been happening to me that I think, like, why does this have to be acceptable? Why do I have to be okay with all of these things going on?
Okay.
And I just have zero say, it seems. So,
Or zero solutions.
there is zero solutions in a lot of the cases. So.
Okay.
Why do I feel like this is going down a homeless path? But
Well, that certainly is part of
one
it.
of the groups?
It's part of it for me.
The unhoused,
for
I
sure,
guess, not
for
homeless.
sure. Unhoused, yeah.
Yep.
yeah, okay.
But anyways, again, not meant to be controversial to upset anybody. It's just that I'm just left saying to myself, what am I supposed to do? What do I do? And I don't know the answer. So
Let's dive in.
I don't know what we're going to call that, but that's what it's about.
I think you just called it.
I don't know what to call
Is
it.
it called What Can I Do?
Yeah.
Sure.
Actually, what can I do?
What can I do?
Perfect. Well, welcome to What Can I Do? Anyways, so like I said, a little bit controversial, but I'm just, I know you kind of brought up Spence a little bit, you said, I feel like there's going to be homeless in this. And it was something that came to mind because I'm so disillusioned by where we live. It's just, I'm sure it's bad everywhere, but it seems to be.
It is bad everywhere.
Bad everywhere. And I feel like I don't know what to do for these people or to them or what to do about it. All I know is that I'm going down, and I'll use, your wife's play as an example, going down to her play in the east end of the city. And I get out of my car, and the only place to park is a lot that happens to have a lot of unhoused people in it. And they're sitting there, they're doing their needles, or they're bent over, or, doing whatever. There's couches literally out in the parking lot. It's
The zombie apocalypse that you see.
It's packed with people that clearly have nowhere to go. And I truly feel for them. And I think, geez, like, how bad is life that this is where you have to be? But it scared the hell out of me, A, leaving my car there because I was just worried about somebody vandalizing it. B, walking out there in the dark alone, somebody that was wigged out or whatever came out, maybe tried to attack me or my wife going to the car. And yet I have no solution. They're just there because they need to be somewhere.
Well, as you also know, they've now been forced to hire private security for those theater shows,
Right.
to keep the public safe as they exit to their vehicles, which I
Right.
think is really unfortunate.
So,
But good on the theater for recognizing they need to
Yeah,
keep their
but
customers
that's an
safe.
extra expense that they don't really want to have to pay.
Yeah.
Like,
No, it is, and again, this is not about trying to beat up on the people that are homeless or unhoused or whatever we want to call it. The thing is, I don't know what the solution is. I don't know how to give them a safe place to live or stay or get them the help they need if there's mental health issues or whatever it is. And I also, at the same way, I feel like I should be able to feel safe coming out to my vehicle and think I'm out in a public parking lot, or even if it's a private parking lot that somebody owns. Should the person that has that parking lot, should they have the right to say, no, you can't be here. Like, I'm sorry, you're going to have to go over
so
here.
this private property.
Or
this is
whatever.
really about, if I'm hearing you correctly, this is really about whose right supersedes the other, right? Like you should have a right to feel safe in your community,
Yeah.
and feel safe going out in public for a night out, and not have to see someone shooting up beside you.
Yeah.
But they equally have a right to
Live
their life.
to live their life.
And if like I said, if they've got mental health issues or whatever, they have a right to be able to deserve treatment.
And they have a right
or
to
get some help
compassion and empathy.
and compassion.
Yep.
All of those things. Of course,
Yep.
this is not to beat up on them. It's just
No, I know.
that is the issue is that they are there in that parking lot, and I'm going, oh God, this is kind of freaking me out, and yet I don't have any way to do anything about it, and it because I'm a fixer. I want to fix stuff, and I don't know how to fix this. And I think, you've talked before, Spence, about Dubai and, still, this is going off topic but it's the same kind of thing. It's about like, how do you deter people from doing things that are wrong without being inhumane or not seeming like you're
without infringing on human rights. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Everybody's got rights.
Yeah.
And at the same time, all of that stuff is kind of getting thrown out the window. It's just this grab bag of stuff that's happening all over the place.
Well, I think what's happening in here, specifically in your city, in London, right, is that everyone is making accommodations. As you said, Wade, the theater is making an accommodation. They're hiring security to deal with the problem that's being presented by the unhoused that are in there. Maybe they're, harassing the guests as they're leaving the theater.
Yeah.
So they're making a choice and having to spend money to provide that security. On the same breath, the police are having to go to areas, move people out, try to, deal with, whether it's drugs or whatever's happening, fights, God knows what's going on. So they're having to make an accommodation and spend money to try to fix a problem, but yet the problem isn't getting fixed. Right. And that's the real problem. How do we fix this problem? It feels like there is no fix.
Well, that's, yeah.
Well, if there was a fix, we wouldn't be having the problem, right?
Well,
this is affecting every country in North America right now. Like I'm just speaking North America right now, but there's no one immune to this right now. It's everywhere. It's increased exponentially since COVID, but it's costing us a tremendous amount of money.
And it's not solving the problem.
It's not solving the problem. We're moving the problem. We just move it from one neighborhood to the next neighborhood.
But that's just,
Yeah, but we're not
a quick
solving
fix
it.
for a
We're
minute.
playing a shell game is all we're doing, right?
Yeah, and I guess that's my level of frustration. Again, it's not about, we're talking about homeless, and that's because that's just happens to be this particular issue. It's not about having a hate on about it or anything else. I want them to have a safe place to go. But where is that? Where is that place that they can go and get what they need? That at the same time, everyone else who just wants to walk through a park or whatever. There's, you guys know I'm a fisherman, right? And there's all kinds of paths along the Thames River where people just go or used to go.
There's also a ton of encampments.
Well, that's why you can't go anywhere. That's why I say used to go, where people just walk the river and they would go bass fishing or whatever. You can't do that now because of the fear of getting jumped or knifed. People that work for me or worked for me, have almost got into fights a few times. They had to stop going down there because they were getting attacked.
Yeah.
Because so many people were living along that path.
Yep.
Because it's off the beaten path and they need somewhere to go. And again, they do need somewhere to go. You need to help them. But geez, like I can't walk down a path that's a nature trail to, along the Thames because they've taken them from downtown and they've moved them over there just to get them out of the way of somebody else's store downtown. I don't know what to do about it to help them and to help the people that are feeling frustrated by the same problem.
Well, here's the problem. People have to want the help, right? And that's where I think a lot of the problem comes into. Because we can say, they need, drug addiction help, or they need mental health help, or they need financial help, right?
All three.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's fine. We can say, we clearly can identify that these are things that they need. And even if we decide we're going to, hey, we can send you into treatment, we can do this. If the person in that encampment says,
if they don't want to go,
thanks.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in your help. Okay. But now how do you deal with that? Because we live in a free country, and who gives me the right to tell this person you can't live that way?
Sure. But if somebody is living that way and it's infringing on your ability to say, walk down the street,
but who's
safely,
right supersedes who's right.
Well, that's just it. That's just it.
It's not, I don't even know if it's a.
But it is though.
No,
It's
it is
their right
though.
to stay there, and it's your right to say, I want to walk the nature trail, and they say, I want to live by the river.
Let me give you an example, Chad. So why is it okay that several businesses in the core of downtown London, East London, closed their doors and never reopened because they couldn't have a storefront because of all the unhoused people and drug activity that occurred out front of their store?
Well, no customer came by.
Customers came in,
Right.
So they had to close down. So why is that okay? Why is that fair? Simply because we live in a free country that says, well, they're unhoused and this is where they decide to set up shop.
Right, but that's my thing. It's not fair. They do need somewhere to go.
Right.
But,
So is the solution to get a field somewhere, Chad, and we're just going to push all these people and say,
well,
if you want to be homeless, you have to only be homeless here?
I'll be honest. I've thought about stuff like that, and it's like, well, geez, that's totally infringing on people's rights of just saying you're going to have to live over here in this field, and we're going to put a fence around it, and we're going to bring in, Salvation Army
Sounds
to
like
feed
jail.
you. Well,
Sounds like jail. Yeah.
No, exactly. But you're. I'm like thinking, part of me thinks, well, geez, you're going to provide a place for them to stay. You've got some porta potties, somebody's serving some food. They got everything they need. But at the same time, you're forcing them to go somewhere where they don't want to be, which is not right.
Well, you can't force them because you can set that up and say, here's a spot. And some people may go there and say, this is nice. As I can be with my friends and I've got support and there's staff that are going to help me. But there's a large segment that'll say, I'm not going there. And so
then
do you force them to go there? Because then you're detaining illegally.
Right.
You can't fence the area because now that they're being detained illegally. So what do you do? Like, how do you?
Well, I agree. And I don't think I should be able to force them to go there because that doesn't sound right. And at the same time, the other side of me says, but shouldn't I be able to tell this guy who's sleeping in my storefront that I'm going to have to close down because I can't get a customer? Shouldn't I be able to say, this is my private property. You're not allowed to be here.
I agree with that.
Right? That's the problem.
You
right?
should. Yeah.
Private property should be that.
Right.
That if someone decides they're going to camp on your front lawn, you as the property owner should be able to say, sorry, sir, this is my property.
Well, he does have the right to do that.
Okay, well, let me ask you a question. If you've got a park downtown, let's say, that has a sign that nobody in the park from, there's places that have signs up that say like from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m., nobody can be in the park. And that's to prevent, obviously, people from sleeping or staying there.
Sure.
If you've got that and that's a sign and we'll call it a law or municipal bylaw, whatever it is, should you have the right to tell a person that needs somewhere to go, you can't be here?
Yeah, exactly. That's the rule for that park. But here's the problem.
Where do they go?
That is the problem.
Yeah. The sign is there, clearly marked, and if they're there, it's trespassing.
Sure.
But the unhoused or whoever wants to go there says, I don't care. I'm going to go there.
Right.
Then what happens? We arrest them? Do we charge them with trespassing? But then what? Do they go to jail for trespassing? And now, what does that cost the society?
Well, they
to
don't.
house someone.
They don't go to jail. Right now,
they don't.
yeah, right
because
now
it doesn't make sense financially to do that.
Right now in our current system, they maybe if they were caught trespassing the 22nd time, maybe they might get an issue, a summons to appear to court for that charge.
Which
and then they
throw
don't
in the garbage.
And then they don't show up to court, and then we go, oh, there's a warrant for their arrest, and then the police go, I'm not. Why am I going to deal with that? Like, I don't know. I have no idea what the solution is, and you guys know me. I am by nature a very compassionate, empathetic person, but I'm losing my compassion for the issue because I feel like it's infringing on everyone else's rights to protect the rights of someone else who is unhoused, right? And
or is not living under the norms
not
of society.
To our society, right?
And that's the whole challenge because you put your compassion on notice, sort of that. I'm not looking to be a jerk to these people. I don't want them to not have somewhere to go. I want them to have a meal. I want them to have a roof over their head. But I also don't want to have to be worried when I go to my car.
Not in my backyard syndrome.
Well, I mean,
that's what
I've said before, and where my old shop was, they would come and they would, go in behind where my vehicles were. They come in and squat and do number 2 at my door.
And that's called defecating.
Yeah, well.
Yeah,
I was trying to think of the nice word to do, a little poo-poo.
Poo-poo caca.
But the thing is, it was a spot where it was tucked away and nobody could see, and it made for a good bathroom spot for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but then you had to deal with it.
I did. More than a few times, I had to go out there and clean up human feces from my front doorstep.
Mm-hmm. And you should not have to deal with that.
Right. At the same time, the restaurants probably aren't lining up to let them in to use the bathroom.
Right. What are they going to do?
Right. So it's just brutal. Now, I want to get away from the homeless thing because I don't want this to become just an unhoused conversation. That just happened to be something that made me think about it because I wish I had the answer. I'd be a millionaire if I could figure this out. You, Spence, we were talking about just, people putting things in place to stop other behaviors from happening. And you got talking about Dubai. And I don't know if you want to sort of elaborate on that whole thing. But
I think we were talking before about stealing and
deterrence.
Deterrence,
right.
yes.
What is the deterrent to stop behavior or unwanted behavior?
Yeah.
And all I said was, it's pretty well known and documented that there is not a theft problem in Dubai. That you can go
just
there.
Everyday theft,
you could be go to a restaurant, or leave your car unlocked, windows down, your cell phone in there, your wallet sitting there on the dash, and you could go shopping for hours and come back and your wallet's still there, your phone's no one will steal.
Why?
And it may be, this is what I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
I think no one steals because if you get caught stealing, the penalties are extremely severe. I don't know if that's, get your hand cut off or death or whatever it is. They just don't tolerate it. And so I'm not saying hey, let's just, kill people for stealing. I'm not suggesting that. But they've made a deterrent, or made it such a deterrent that people just realize I'm not doing that. And so, and this is going to sound bad to say, but I kind of I understand. I respect that. It's kind of like you're a kid and you're coming home, and as you said, you're late every day, and your dad says, stop being late, and you keep on being late, and then you get punished. You get the belt or a spanking or whatever. It's going to change that behavior. And guess what? You're not going to be late because you understand there's a consequence that you don't like.
Right.
Somehow in our society today, there isn't the consequence anymore. And no one wants to say there's some hard and fast, things that are going to happen if you do these kind of behaviors.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to challenge that. And I'm not saying that what you're saying isn't true. But for most of the public, spending 20 years in jail would be a severe consequence. Mm-hmm. I would not want that to happen.
No.
Right? Mm-hmm. And yet we still have murders in this country. We still have tons of murders. Still have sexual assaults. Things that get you lots of jail time. People still do it. So those deterrents are not working. So then is it the deterrence it's not big enough? It's not as much of a deterrent? Because if people knew you get 20 years in jail for murdering somebody, why would they still do it?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you bring up a good point.
Yeah, I think there's a mental health aspect of that, of why somebody wants to take someone else's life.
That brings up another issue, Chad, right? So if you're mentally ill, should you have your hand cut off for stealing?
Well, you're suggesting there's no mentally ill people in Dubai?
I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm just saying there's so many variables around criminal activity that we're clearly saying if you're mentally ill and you get arrested for something, we've got to take that into consideration. Sure. But in Dubai, that's not a consideration. Right. You break the law, you pay the price.
Right. I think we have a higher slant on human rights, maybe than other countries,
which is a good thing. Yeah.
Which we should,
of course.
Yeah. But I think that the problem for me is, and whether it's stealing or jail or homelessness or whatever the issue is, it seems like there's so much focus on the duty to accommodate this, whatever the particular group is, that we've lost somewhere the ability to kind of maintain order in some capacity. That's what it feels like to me.
Or we're making so many accommodations to deal with someone else's right that we forget all the rights of the other collective part of the society.
Yes.
Right.
Which is unfair. Yes. I don't think it can be.
Yes.
That's the problem.
Right now, we have gone way the other direction around accountability and holding people accountable.
Yes.
Our justice system is not working. Our court system is overwhelmed. People get released.
The police are probably overwhelmed.
People get released when they shouldn't get released. People get bail when they shouldn't get bail because we have not enough courts. Not enough resources to manage the court system. But that's producing, in my opinion, an epidemic of crimes against others, crimes that victimize others.
Well,
because there's no to little consequence, or they get a piece of paper to come to court. And so what I get upset with is why is that okay? And we know it's not okay, but how come I have to now pay? Like, who's the dummy here? I'm going and paying full price for everything. In fact, more than I should pay because theft is through the roof. So now the ones that are now paying, we actually go and we buy our stuff at the
ones
store.
that are abiding by the rules.
The ones that are abiding by the rules.
They're going to pick up the tab.
Are the ones suffering.
Yeah.
It's just, I think it's pathetic. I think it's unfortunate that you go to any store now, anywhere, and there's security. There's security in grocery stores. I go to grocery stores now and they've totally restructured the entrance and exit way so that it's harder for people to run out of there without being stopped. Yeah. It's unfortunate.
I want to touch on that actually, because that's another area, and that's a hot button thing for me. I think, geez, if I owned a store, let's say I owned Future Shop, I should have the right to protect my personal stuff in there.
Yes.
But yet, because of a multitude of reasons, people will come in and could be anybody, just anybody who's stealing, whether they're homeless, somebody that just wants to sell stuff, whatever the reason, they can just come in and physically put it under their arm and walk out because the security is not allowed to touch them. Or they just
they
have to
can't
say,
engage.
sir, come back, sir. And then they go and then they phone the police, and the police go, look, listen, we got a million things going on. We don't have time to deal with this crap. Sorry. We'll see if we can get a car there at some point. So, and then I've said to you before, Wade, well, why can't there be a security guard in the front that you've got a big sign up that says, if you try to leave, I'm going to tackle you and get my stuff back, because that's my stuff you're taking, and that's not okay with me. And you said, well, you can't do that because you just can't be tackling people. And I think, well, it's true. You don't want people to get hurt.
But you also can't steal either, but people are doing it.
Right. But it's because, again, there's not a consequence. There's not a consequence. They know that the police are not going to come. They know that it's not going to be a big priority. And so the guy in the store just goes, well, I guess I'll just raise my prices, and that'll help combat the fact that everybody's leaving with all this stuff. And it's so ass backwards to me. I think if you... I mean, I wouldn't dream when I was younger of putting a TV under my arm and waving at the manager on my way out and just walking out and putting it in my car.
Yeah, with impunity.
With full impunity, which is what is happening now. And I mean, I'm not trying to sensationalize. That's actually happening.
Yeah.
The problem is, like, I know what you say about hiring the security and all that to deal with it.
But there's a human rights factor there. I get it.
I wasn't even going to say the human rights factor, but the problem is we're shifting now from policing to, like, vigilante.
Well,
it's like now the public is dealing with the consequence of the action, and then you do like that opens up a whole different topic, which is you're supposed to have police for a reason to maintain order, but now they're not doing that, so it's being pushed on the citizens to maintain order. Right, and then you have problems where this guy tackles a guy. Oh, I thought he stole something. No, you just like smash someone into the ground. Like, it's just.
Well, no, I'm talking about like very obvious. The guy's got a cart full of stuff and he's saying, "Oh no, I'm taking it and I'm leaving." I'm not talking about you think he has something and you just beat the guy to a pulp in a lobby, right? And I'm not suggesting violence is a good thing either. I don't want to see that either. But I just think, geez, if I own that store, I want to protect my stuff somehow. Like, shouldn't I have the right to say you can't leave with my stuff? I don't want to tackle you. I don't want to beat you up. I don't want to have security guards who are injuring people. I don't want any of that. Okay. But if somebody is coming and just leaving with it because they know there's no accountability for them to pay.
So, but what's the problem when they say no? You're like, hey, sir, leave that. You can't steal it. And they're like, no, I'm leaving.
Well, that's what I mean.
Then you have to tackle them.
I know, but that's...
Or physically be pulling the thing back, and now you're in some sort of
But in today's society, though, I think the mentality of people is, well, you can't do that because you don't know their circumstances. Maybe they are in housing, they're trying to feed their families, and they need that money because they're going to sell that TV.
That's part of it. Yeah, that's part of it.
Right.
Yeah. The other part is that people would have realized losing my life is not worth that bottle of vodka that they stole. So, which I also appreciate.
Yeah.
The consequence of that, however, is that we all pay more for everything.
Right.
Right. So, which isn't helping either.
Which isn't fair to the general populace.
That's the thing. Like I can't figure out how to balance.
I agree.
These are all just things, and I don't have a retail store, luckily.
No, they're huge social issues.
These are things that I just think, like, how do we balance some of these issues so that if they're people that genuinely need help, they're getting the help, and the people that are law-abiding people that are following the rules and are picking up the tab for all this stuff, that they're getting a little bit of reprise. What's the word I want? Reprieve.
Reprise. I mean, as Spence brought up the term vigilante, I think we're probably going to see more of that vigilante stuff happening. And it's not, you said before, I think you said the police aren't doing anything about it. The police are doing things about it.
They're limited.
But the police are handcuffed by the legal system and the court system when they realize, if I arrest this person and go in front of the judge is going to throw it out. So why should I even arrest him? So
I agree.
It's a waste of time and resources.
It's a huge system issue.
And
overall.
Similarly, you got
more violent
some guy doing a violent crime against his girlfriend. That's going to take a priority over a buddy who just walked out with a TV.
It's been in the news big time where, like, I think the latest stat was something like 400 high-risk offenders, like violent criminals, were released because they had no ability to because the court case took longer because of our legislation. It took more than 2 years. So it got thrown out of court because our current legislation says you can't delay that court trial. So they just got released. Like, how wrong is that? But that's because we don't have the resources to manage it.
It's horrible for sure.
And then you say, okay, let's just get more resources. But then where does that money come from?
Yeah, build more jails. Where does that money come from?
Who pays for that?
It's
You
a
can
lot
either
of
pay
money.
for it in lost, loss prevention, then your price of goods go up, or your taxes go higher because you had to build jails and have more judges.
But the bigger issue for me, and it may sound strange to say this, is that it is eroding our society little by little until we're going to get to a point that we're not going to like what we see.
Right.
It's already happening.
It is already happening.
That's when the vigilante thing comes into play, because people are like, I can't rely on anybody else to solve my problem, so I'm just going to do whatever.
Look how normalized violence has become already. In the last 5 years, since COVID, violence has become very normalized as a way to deal with your issues. So that's what scares me more, right? Is it the money pisses me off that we have to spend money if we're going to build more jails? Who's going to pay for that? I get all of that. But at some point, like the way we're going, I just feel like we're witnessing the demise of our society very slowly. And we're going to wake up one day and go, what the heck? Like,
where are we living?
What have we done?
Yeah.
Right. Because we have been so accommodating in this country.
Well, that's exactly my issue. I think we've gone from, and Canada is a welcoming country, and we allow all kinds of stuff, and everybody's compassion and all these sorts of things. But all of that compassion and all of those things have now
been taken advantage of.
Yeah, it's because there was some compassion. It's been taken advantage of, and people realize, for example, talking about the stealing thing. Hey, I just found out that I can go in there and I can just do that and leave, and they're not going to do anything because they're not allowed to touch me because they don't know my situation. And then somebody will take a video and they'll show the manager in the store beating up on this poor little 14-year-old kid because he, and he probably was feeding his family, and everybody's going to boycott.
The 14-year-old was feeding his family.
And
no, you're right.
Somebody's going to boycott my store because so I don't want to do that.
Yep.
So I guess I'll just let them steal. It just feels so ass backwards.
We're helpless.
Yeah, you're helpless.
Well, I'm very curious to know. I don't have the stats on this, but I'm curious to know how many people have decided I'm going to steal because I can now. Like
I think there's a huge population.
I don't steal.
Yeah.
I buy my stuff. None of us here go and steal.
Yeah.
Some people steal because they clearly need the money, or they're feeding their family, and I have a lot of compassion for that.
Sure.
But I'm wondering how many people have just decided, I can do it, so I'm just going to do it, even though I don't have to do it.
I mean, I don't know the stats. I would bet you it's at least 50-50.
I think there's
probably more. I think there's more criminal element than there is.
Oh, there's huge criminal.
At the end of the day, Wade, if you owned this, fictitious store, and somebody came in that clearly looked like an unhoused person that was not doing well, and they stole bologna from your, whatever, you own Loblaws, and they stole
I would feel very different about that.
Right, a pack of bologna. You'd be like, I don't like he stole, but I can see he needs to eat, and you can feel the compassion for that. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of people, as you said, Spence, just saying, heck, I can just go in once a week and grab a little handful of things, sell it to all my buddies at school, and I'm going to make a killing this summer.
Well, I think a lot of people have realized with self-checkout, they can just skip that one, skip that one, throw it in the bag, and they walk out.
I find self-checkout interesting. Like I
know your viewpoint on that is different. I know you're like, hey, if they're not going to give me a cash, you're not going to do the work.
That's not my feeling at all. I make sure that I scan everything. But I often have thought about that. I'm wondering about how many people are not scanning it. Or
a lot of people are.
Yeah, you think so? Is that a big problem?
Yeah, it is.
I mean,
I think so too.
Lots of stores are still using that self-checkout. So, I mean, there must be some advantages.
But that's the risk that they've decided, I don't want to pay for staff to be a cashier. I'm going to put a machine in. But if that machine can't stop someone from stealing, then the money they're losing there on theft, is it higher than their employee costs that they've saved, right?
But they still pay an employee to watch everyone at self-checkout.
But it's only one employee to watch.
Only one.
I know. Yeah, I was going to say there's one employee and there's five.
So there is a savings for them, and I guess the balance is. Yeah,
if you had a cashier that was, I'm sure they don't make $20 an hour, but if they did, that'd be 8 hours, that'd be $160 a day. So if you had 5 or 6 checkouts, all replaced by one person that was just kind of looking around and keeping an eye on things, you've just saved $1,000 in labor, roughly. Mm-hmm. So as long as you get less than $1,000 worth of stuff stolen during the day, you're ahead of the game. Is that what we're saying?
So I want to go back to the conversation about deterrence and how different countries do things, right? So, because we just said this, we would all feel very differently if someone went into Loblaws and stole some bologna.
Sure.
Because we're like, they're clearly getting food for themselves.
Yes.
I feel compassion for that person. Mm-hmm. But if we went to a system in Canada where you do the crime, you do the time, where you have the deterrent, the consequence. And that consequence is you you do hard labor for 20 years for theft.
Yep.
Is that okay? That the person who needs the bologna to feed themselves, and that's all they stole just enough for themselves, they get 20 years of hard labor. They get the same consequence as the organized criminal element that had
stole the TVs.
that had 5 people go in the store. Well, three distracted you, and 2 stole TVs and
Right.
$5,000 worth of tools at Home Depot, and then
Yeah,
left the store.
They both should not get the same
They both get
sentence.
but in
Right.
those societies,
I agree.
They both get the
but
same.
that's how they
sentence.
deal with it to stop it.
Right.
But do we want to go down that path?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Right. But earlier on, you said I kind of respect that, and I
Well, I respect. It's not. That's probably the wrong word.
Yeah.
It's not that I respect it, but I think by having such a severe penalty to the crime,
It deters.
they've deterred
Yes.
the crime.
Yes.
I like
But they also maybe
yeah.
are pushing human rights, and
Right.
they're
well, they
you
are
know,
they are pushing human
Right.
rights, yeah,
Right.
for sure.
and
Yeah.
so I don't subscribe
and
to
that's
that,
my problem.
but-
I like the idea of creating a deterrent, of finding a way to stop these people from stealing, or from the unhoused people to be in the doorways or whatever it is. I love the idea of coming up with a deterrent to make that happen. I just don't know what it is, and I'm just getting more frustrated by the day because I see more and more of it going on. And I think, why is this okay? But I have no solution, and clearly nobody else does either, which is probably more frustrating.
Well, maybe what they have to do then is say, if you need food, don't go to a store and steal it. We have this store that's open where you go and you can just ask, hey, I need some food bank or whatever.
Well, we do. We have food
Well,
banks.
yeah,
Right, but if
we
some-
have that.
Right, but
basically.
if someone can go to a food bank and get food, but chooses to go to a store and steal the food, then I would view that differently and say, listen,
okay.
you don't have to do that. I get, a crime of necessity. You need to feed your family, but I'm giving you an option over here. Option B is
Right.
go here and we'll give you the free food. You don't need to steal it. But if you steal the food, there's going to be a harsher penalty.
Okay,
What's
well-
wrong with that?
So, well, I honestly don't think that there is anything wrong with that, and
Because now you're only. We all agree that we feel differently about the person stealing food.
sure.
For
Then the guy that took the
sustenance.
TV, yes,
Correct. And
Sustenance,
if that's how we
yes.
feel, then I bet every store would subscribe and say, we'll give a portion of our profits to fund this food bank where people can go get that food and not have to steal it. And it would probably lower.
So because we're compassionate, what about someone who, because of their own dignity, just cannot bring themselves to go to a food bank because they're so proud?
Well, if you're that proud, then you're not.
No, not true. If I can go and steal and no one knows I'm stealing and I can just quietly go do it.
But people know you're stealing because
I might choose that option instead of going to a food bank and having to admit that I can't afford food.
But if our
That's
laws
interesting.
persecute you for stealing, now it's not.
Yeah, you're going to
you're
going to
gonna-
choose to be a little uncomfortable.
People are going to know that you
Not
stole.
necessarily.
Yeah.
But people are going to know you stole because you're going to be charged and have a record.
Well, if you get caught, people don't steal to get caught. They don't think they're going to get caught.
Well, now they just steal because they
Well,
know
now
that
they
nobody's,
do. Well, now they
nobody's
do.
going to
Yes,
do anything
but
about it.
again, I'm going to the person who clearly is doing it because they really need to feed their family.
Right, and again, that's a different scenario.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well-
I don't know. It's
Well,
it's a tough thing.
that opens up another thing, and this goes back to this sort of unhoused side of things. But we're saying, well, people need a place to stay. Like if they got to be in a doorway because there's nowhere to stay.
Mm-hmm.
I know that we don't have enough shelters, hostels, whatever the case, to accommodate everybody.
Correct.
Known fact, there is not enough. But I also know, and I'm pretty sure it's a common fact, that the reason some of these people are doing what they're doing and being in an encampment or whatever is because to stay in the shelter or to stay in the...
There's rules.
There's rules that you
Yes.
have to follow. You got to be in by 10.
That's correct.
You can't do drugs. You can't be caught drinking, whatever. There's like, we'll give you a spot to be, but you're going to have to follow these rules.
That's
well,
correct.
as soon as you realize that you have to follow the rules, you say, yeah, I like it better over the encampment because
There are
I
no
can-
rules.
There's no rules and I can do whatever the heck I want. So how do you deter? What is the answer to get that person to decide, actually, yeah, you know what? I am going to go with the rules over here because the rules of me being in an encampment is worse than,
Well, as Spencer said
Then-
earlier,
then,
people want want help, right? And the ones that are using shelters may want help. The ones who are like, I'm not going there. There's rules.
Right.
They're fine with their lifestyle. They don't
right. But
tell me what to do.
should it be okay? And I don't know the answer. Should it be okay to penalize those people that, let's just say there was a bed for everybody. And I know there isn't, but if there was a bed for everybody, should there be a stricter policy to take care of the guy that chose to be out in the encampment and sat on that private property and put up a tent and caused fires and did whatever they did.
Yes, I believe so.
Right? Shouldn't it be okay to do that? Because they actually have a place to go.
I believe they should set a boundary. Yes.
Right.
Right now, there's no boundaries being set.
Right.
Yeah.
Because everyone's worried about infringing on someone's right. And the homeless or unhoused person says, I don't want to go to a shelter and I don't want to do this. I want to live outside in nature. Why can't I do that?
I wouldn't probably
I live in a free
those
country. I want to live in nature.
Yeah. You ever been in one of those? I mean, they're not the nicest. I've been in one.
I'm pretty sure some encampments aren't that great either. People getting robbed and killed and sexually assaulted.
It stinks. There's
So there's risks everywhere you look. But I think it comes down to if someone doesn't want to do something, what gives society the right to tell them they can't do that?
I'll answer that for you. What gives society the right to put someone in jail?
I agree.
It's called laws.
I know.
Right.
Right. And we're now becoming we turned a corner, I guess, around COVID, around people wanting to defund police or restructure resources to police, which, restructuring is not a bad thing to help more mental health clients. But this whole notion of we don't need laws or police are infringing on my right to do whatever I want when I want to do it. This notion of lawless society.
Right. We can't have that.
Isn't working. We're watching it happen.
Yeah. Really, you want to live in a lawless society? People say they might want that until you need police.
Until you're a victim, and then you realize you need police.
When I hear people talk about defunding the police, I think, are you kidding? You know what would happen if we didn't have
imagine, Chad, that you call police because someone broke into your house and they're assaulting your wife.
Yeah.
And you call police and the police arrive and the person's still in the house and they say to that person, you need to leave or you're going to be arrested. And they go, no, I'm not leaving. I actually like this house. And they go, well, Chad, we asked him nicely and he said no. So
exactly.
Vigilante justice.
So I guess, well, we tried, Chad. It didn't work because we're in this weird part in our society where people are like, police are using force. How dare they? And I'm like,
right.
Okay. So you don't want them to use force. And nobody wants to use force,
yes,
but now you're a victim and they're in your house and you call police and police say, well, I asked him nicely. He won't leave on his own. And well, I can't really force him to leave. So, okay, bye-bye. Have a good night. That's how we want to live. To me, that's interesting.
This is not exactly the same, but some time ago I'd said we were talking about this stealing thing in a store and protecting your stuff. And it's just that, you kind of said, well, you have to accept that there's going to be a little bit of this. You don't know their circumstances, you're sort of looking at the compassionate side of it.
Yep.
And I thought, I struggle to see that, but I sort of understood what you're saying. But I said to you, well, okay, let me just reverse this now. You're sitting at home watching TV and somebody knocks on the door and they go, oh, hey, and they just walk in and they just say, oh, that's a nice TV. I'm just going to just grab that real quick.
Yep.
Right. And you're like, what are you doing? Like, that's my TV. And like, no, I know, but you have a TV and I don't have one. So I'm just going to grab the quick. You'd be like, you're not taking my TV. Like, so to me, my store, protecting my store, those are things that I'm paying for, that's how I make my living. And I bought those items and I put them in my store and to try to sell them. Shouldn't I have the same right to protect that? Like I would if that guy just walked, because you would never let that, unless he came in and held you at gunpoint. Somebody walked into your door and said, I'm just coming to grab your TV quick because I need one. You'd be like, get the hell out of my house. What are you talking about? You're not going to do that. So why is there a difference there? Why is,
That's a good question.
And you know why? Because I think it's because the guy that's in your, quote, your store, or the gal, whoever, is also being there with the other 30 shoppers that all have their cell phones out that are taking the video of the guy getting taken down, or you chasing them across the parking lot, or tripping somebody, or something bad happening to that person who was stealing. I think it's because of the fear of what everyone else will say. In your house, you've got anonymity. Nobody's going to know what happened except for you and the person that walked in to get your TV.
But the law protects you, Chad. You under the criminal code, you have a right to defend your property and your person.
But I don't.
But a business doesn't.
I don't have the right as a business to protect my property. Is that where we're at?
Well, it comes down to what you just said, right? You can do that, but if you tackle the unhoused person in your store for stealing your TV and that gets out to the media,
right?
I think there's a lot of people who have no problem making an opinion when they're not the victim.
Well, that's exactly it, and that's the part that I'm just always trying to wrap my head around. That's really what sparked this conversation. Is just, it's not about picking on people who are stealing or unhoused people or anybody else. It's about why is it so flipped that we're so worried about the optics of what something might look like that we just allow all this stuff to go on that years ago would have never been okay. we would have said, wait a minute, no, like that, you can't do that. And now we just say, well,
I think what's happened is it's become so extreme that we could all tolerate a certain level of crime or theft or of homelessness because we're like, it's a societal issue. Like it's going to happen. We recognize that. But when it gets to a certain level that it is now, where we now feel like it's so extreme and out of control, we want to gain back some control. We feel like
the pendulum has gone way over here. But we've got to bring it back to center.
No, that's exactly it.
So, and I think there's some fear involved because we want to feel safe in our communities. Like look at the
Absolutely.
U.S. right now. There's a lot of fear right now of civil war in the U.S. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people. I just read an article about the number of people of Americans that are preparing shelters and prepping for civil war.
That's crazy.
Has
and
jumped
civil
up.
Unrest,
Has jumped up tremendously because they think there's going to be unrest. Even though Trump got in, if Trump didn't get in, there was going to be unrest. We all know that. Sure. He got in, and people are still afraid of there being unrest, and that concerns me that we're at that point in our society.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I knew that bringing the topic to you, we weren't going to be able to solve anything.
Oh, God, no.
But I guess I wonder, like, maybe it's the old, two heads are better than one scenario. I think if you talk about it, maybe some people can get their heads together. Maybe a room full of really smart people need to all get together in a giant auditorium. And they start saying, okay, what if we try this? No, that's not going to work. Okay, we could try this.
Yeah, well, and people have tried.
I know, but
there's
right
too many
now
varying opinions on it.
We've given up trying, and we're all suffering. The unhoused people are suffering. The jails are overrun. The police are suffering because
people
they
haven't
can't
given up
manage it all.
trying. I know that. I can tell you, there's initiatives in the city. They're not giving up trying, but no one has the right solution.
Right.
It's called mediocrity. People are like, it's fine.
In fact, someone I know who actually works in that homeless area.
Yeah.
Very high up in that area. I asked him the question, how do we solve this? He goes, you don't solve it. He clearly said, well, there's no solution. There's things you can do to try to make it a bit better, but there is no solution.
Well, I'm of the opinion that there is a solution. I don't know what it is, and it may take us a while to get there, and it may take hundreds of people to figure it out, but I feel like there's a solution. So I wanted to bring it up because I hate that I have to tolerate it. And
here's a solution for you.
Sure.
Let's take the billions of dollars being spent on elections and use it to fund some of the social problems.
Sure.
How about that?
I agree.
Or how about let's take the billions and trillions of dollars being used to develop weapons and you know all these countries that are spending insane amounts of money. That for what?
Or how about this? How about we take the $250 GST rebate we're going to give every Canadian? And total all that up. What does that amount to when you add it all together?
I agree. And that, I used to love getting that check.
Housing.
I used to love getting that check, but at the same time, we don't have it to give it away. We're running a massive deficit. We don't have it to give it away. And you're right. We could throw those, I don't know if it's $1 billion or how much money that would be, but we could throw that.
What's the population of Canada?
30 million, let's say.
Do the math. What's 250 times 30 million?
Well, not everybody would get it.
No.
Kids get it. But
Say there was 10 million. 10 million people that could get it.
Yeah.
Times $250. What is that?
Who's going to do the math?
I'm sure there's a B in front of it. Right?
Did you say 10 million, Chad? Is that what you? 10
million people. If you took 10 million,
because
people,
it only applies to people that make less than 100,000 a year
and made $250 a person times 10 million. What is that? What's that equal? Yeah, is it
$2.5 billion?
It's a lot.
Yeah, 2.5.
At any rate, you could probably do some damage on the unhoused population to helping something with that kind of money. But instead, you're going to give it to everyone else just to make them happy before an election.
What does $250 do for the average person? It buys you half a week's groceries, and then what happens the next week?
No.
I don't understand it. So anyway, fellas, we're never going to solve this one.
No.
But hopefully we didn't offend anyone in this podcast.
No, I certainly did not want to offend anyone. It wasn't about calling anyone out. It was just about the norms that have just seemed to have gone out the window and just wishing that I had a solution. I would implore everybody to put your heads together because this only is going to get worse. And we need to find a way to...
we can't put our head in the sand for sure.
I'm fearful where it's going to go.
Yeah. We can't just sit around and just watch it implode.
And we can't have vigilante justice.
No, we can't have that. We can't have people that don't have a place to live. We can't have stores that can't afford to have customers. So I don't know. It's going to get people talking. again, I didn't want to offend anybody. I appreciate you guys came along for the ride, and I hope that everybody else
Well,
appreciates.
this was your idea, so I wanted to just make sure.
It's Chad
keep myself-
McCone's idea.
Keep your distance.
Chad McCone.
Yes.
He lives at.
If anyone wants to cancel the podcast, it's Chad's idea.
Yeah. Here's the email. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it is hard to talk about those things, but it's just I just gotta believe there's a solution somewhere.
Well, I know we're going to wrap up, but it's because we don't like the way the world is right now. So we're kind of at a loss as to how to fix it. But the way things are happening,
You feel powerless.
you feel powerless. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't like feeling powerless, so I hope one day I can regroup some of this power back.
All the power to you, Chad.
Oh, thank
On
you.
that note,
That was a great power analogy. Yeah. Anyways, see you, Spencer.
See you next time.
see you later, guys.
Ciao.